This is musicologist Jane, reading you the program notes for the Stockton Symphony concerts on April 2nd and 3rd, 2022. Our first piece is the Overture to the Marriage of Figaro by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. He was born in Salzburg, January 27, 1756, and he died in Vienna, December 5, 1791. Even librettist Lorenzo da Ponte, who was prone to dressing up the truth in a self-promoting manner, admitted that writing a Figaro opera was Mozart's idea. The composer had complained to his father in 1783 of having read hundreds of plays, none of which suited him as a comic opera subject. Having aborted several attempts to set existing Italian librettos, he eagerly turned to Beaumarchais' play Le Mariage de Figaro ou La Folle Journée, The Marriage of Figaro or The Crazy Day, once it became clear that Da Ponte would write him a libretto. Mozart's desire to set Beaumarchais' script was enhanced by the knowledge that the play had been banned throughout the Habsburg Empire early in 1785 by Emperor Joseph II on account of its politically subversive elements. What better popular enticement than something banned? Furthermore, Mozart could count on audience familiarity with the characters from Giovanni Paisiello's greatly successful opera Il Barbiere di Siviglia, The Barber of Seville, not Rossini, based on the first of the plays in what was to be a trilogy. Mozart's certainty that he could outdo his rival fanned the flame. Mozart's father wrote to his sister about her brother having to compose the opera at breakneck speed, which could only have meant that the production was imminent, most likely early December. Yet the opera was not produced until May 1st, 1786, presumably because it took some time to convince the authorities that the offensive portions had been altered sufficiently. Machinations of Da Ponte's rival Abbé Casti and Mozart's rival Antonio Salieri also seem to have caused delays, as did problems with procuring dancers and a cast change for the Countess. The eventual production met with considerable, if not phenomenal, success. After the third performance, the emperor had to limit the encores of solo arias and ban the repetition of all ensemble pieces to keep the performances from lasting all night. Yet Figaro did not achieve its full measure of success until it was produced in Prague the following year, resulting in a commission for a new opera that would become Don Giovanni. The Marriage of Figaro has often been described as the perfect comic opera because it combines engaging entertainment with exquisite musical construction. As in the play, all of the action takes place in one day. The marriage day of Figaro and Susanna, servants to the Count and Countess Almaviva. The main strand of the plot concerns the Count's flirtations with Susanna in connection with the droit du seigneur, his supposed right as a noble to have his way with her on her first night of marriage, and her clever foiling of his advances. The eventual humiliation of this member of the aristocracy by his inferiors, even in its toned-down guise, greatly appealed to the rising middle-class audience. Woven into the web are myriad subplots involving Figaro and the Marcellina, the Count's housekeeper, Dr. Bartolo's desire for revenge on Figaro, the Countess trying to regain her husband's love, and the womanizing young page Cherubino. Mozart's achievement in building his multifaceted musical characterizations into an architectural wonder has kept Figaro in the forefront of the repertoire. The extremely well-known Overture admirably sets up the intrigues and feverish activity of the wedding day. It begins with the merest rustle, followed quickly by a theme for winds and horns, and suddenly the whole orchestra bursts on the scene with a glorious cap to both opening phrases. The second theme group shows the same quick mood changes, building to a climax with no real development section before the reprise begins with the hushed, busy theme of the opening. Mozart had at one time composed a middle lyrical contrasting section before the recapitulation, but ripped the sheet out of the finished score, preferring to keep the moods of humor and gaiety uninterrupted. The piece is scored for 2 flutes, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons, 2 horns, 2 trumpets, timpani, and strings. Our next piece is a world premiere, Ruth Bader Ginsburg in Tune with Justice by Victoria Bond. She was born in Los Angeles, May 6, 1945. Victoria Bond belongs to that elite category of musicians who have scaled the heights in not one, but 2 notoriously selective fields, composing and conducting. Her compositions have won praise from the New York Times as powerful, stylistically varied, and technically demanding. And her conducting has been called impassioned by the Wall Street Journal and full of energy and fervor by the New York Times. And that's not all. She has also been in great demand as a lecturer and teacher, and she has served as artistic director of cutting-edge concerts in New York ever since founding the organization in 1998. Bond's opera Clara, based on the life of composer and pianist Clara Schumann, premiered in 2019 at the Berlin Philharmonic Easter Festival in Baden-Baden, Germany. Recent compositions also include The Adventures of Gulliver, commissioned by American Opera Projects through a commissioning grant from Opera America. Blue and Green music, commissioned by Chamber Music America for the Cassatt String Quartet. Illuminations on Byzantine Chant for pianist Paul Barnes, and The Miracle of Light, a Hanukkah opera, commissioned by the Young People's Chorus of NYC. Her vast and distinguished catalog of works has resulted from commissions by myriad other ensembles and organizations, ranging from the Houston and Shanghai Symphony Orchestras to the American Ballet Theater and Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Bond was born into a family of professional musicians. Her grandfather was a composer and conductor, her grandmother a singer, her mother a concert pianist who had studied with Bartók in Hungary, and her father an operatic bass. Her early training included piano pieces by Bartók, and as a preschooler she loved to make up pictures on the piano, which she would memorize. Singing came naturally to her, and as an undergraduate at the University of Southern California, she studied voice with William Venard, as well as composition with Ingolf Dahl. After conducting studies at the Aspen Music Festival with Leonard Slatkin, she entered the Juilliard School's master's degree program as a composition student of Roger Sessions, but with a desire to study conducting as well. Spurred on by being told she would never be accepted into the conducting program, she not only got in, but became the first woman to be awarded a doctorate in orchestral conducting from Juilliard. Appointed by Andre Previn as Exxon Arts Endowment conductor with the Pittsburgh Symphony in 1978, Bond went on to serve as music director of the New Amsterdam and Roanoke Symphony Orchestras, artistic director of Opera Roanoke, Harrisburg Opera, and Bel Canto Opera, music advisor of the Wuhan Symphony in China, principal guest conductor of the Chamber Opera Chicago, and assistant conductor of New York City Opera under Beverly Sills. Bond conducted the Houston Symphony in the premiere of her work Ringing, and has guest conducted orchestras across the U.S. and in Brazil, Ireland, and China. In addition to her composing and performing activities, Bond gave frequent lectures for the Metropolitan Opera Guild, including a 4-part series on Wagner's Ring, offered as an online course, and for the Met's HD simulcasts at Guildhall. She also regularly gave performance lectures at New York Philharmonic concerts. Bond has taught at the Juilliard School, New York University, Nyack College, and the annual Conductors Institute of South Carolina. Bond describes the impetus for Ruth Bader Ginsburg in Tune with Justice. Peter Jaffe and I have worked together for many years teaching at the Conductors Institute in South Carolina. We met through the Institute's founder, Donald Portnoy, and became instant friends. When Peter commissioned me to write RBG in Tune with Justice, I was thrilled, as it gave me the opportunity to work with him and his orchestra. I have great admiration for his musicianship and look forward to delivering this music into his capable hands. Because Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a towering figure and an inspiration to me, I wanted to write a work that added music to her forceful words. Knowing that she loved opera, this was a natural. I chose Mozart's Overture to the Marriage of Figaro as the basis for my composition, borrowing freely and adapting his energetic pulse, so appropriate to RBG's own boundless energy. My music weaves in and out of Mozart's themes, beginning with a fast-paced overture and continuing with underscoring and interludes that highlight RBG's words. Jane Vile Jaffe has created a compact script, framing RBG's words with her own original narrative and bringing into relief the struggle and triumph central to the story. Her piece is scored for 2 flutes, second doubling piccolo, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons, 2 horns, 2 trumpets, timpani, snare drum, tenor drum, glockenspiel, triangle, and strings. After intermission, we hear the Intermezzo from Cavalleria Rusticana by Pietro Mascagni. He was born in Livorno, December 7th, 1863, and he died in Rome, August 2nd, 1945. In 1888, Mascagni decided to enter a competition for new one-act operas. He commissioned Giovanni Targioni Tozzetti to write the libretto based on Giovanni Verga's hit play Cavalleria Rusticana, Rustic Chivalry, which he had seen 4 years earlier. Targioni Tozzetti enlisted Guido Menasci's help to meet the contest rules, and the libretto was ready that December. Mascagni completed the opera 6 months later, in May 1889. It won the competition out of a field of 73 entries. The impressively successful premiere took place in Rome on May 17, 1890, at the Teatro Costanzi, where publisher Edoardo Sonzogno had arranged that all 3 finalist operas be performed during the season. Cavalleria Rusticana made a fortune for Sonzogno after publisher Giulio Ricordi had failed to recognize its worth. The verismo, or everyday life story, which takes place on Easter Sunday, concerns young peasant Turidu, who has seduced Santuzza but left her for Lola, his former love, who is now Alfio's wife. Santuzza begs him to return to her, but when he spurns her, she tells Alfio about Lola's adulterous affair. Alfio challenges Turidu to a duel, and Turidu, after charging his mother to look after Santuzza, is killed in the fight. The famous intermezzo, customarily played by the orchestra with the curtain up, marks the crucial point in the drama when Alfio has learned of his wife's infidelity. The serenity of the hymn, based on the Regina Caeli from the Easter service, suggests the peacefulness of village life that is just about to be torn apart by the passions of the main characters. The piece is scored for 2 flutes, doubling piccolo, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons, 2 horns, harp, and strings. Our final piece is the Firebird Suite, the 1919 version by Igor Stravinsky. He was born in Oranienbaum, now Lomonosov, June 17, 1882, and he died in New York, April 6, 1971. Stravinsky said he had begun to think about the Firebird in the fall of 1909, even before he had received the commission. I remember the day Diaghilev telephoned me to say, "Go ahead," and I recall his surprise when I said that I had already started. Completed in St. Petersburg in March 1910, the Firebird was premiered by Diaghilev's Ballet Russe in Paris on June 25th. It marked the beginning of a long collaboration with far-reaching results for both artists. Stravinsky, 28 years old, was relatively unknown outside Russia. "Mark him well," said Diaghilev to Karsavina, who was dancing the title role. "He is a man on the eve of celebrity." Choreographer Michel Fokine had adapted the story from Russian sources. Prince Ivan Tsarevich spies a bird with plumes of fire eating golden fruit in an enchanted forest. That's introduction, Dance of the Firebird. He captures her, but then releases her when she gives him a glowing feather. He beholds 13 dancing princesses, that's the round dance of the princesses, under the spell of the fearsome Casche, and falls in love with the 13th. At Casche's castle, the prince faces a horde of freakish monsters, then Casche himself. The Firebird's feather saves him from being turned to stone, and she herself aids him by causing the monsters to dance in a frenzy. They seem to regain control, that's the infernal dance, but collapse from exhaustion. The Firebird lulls them to sleep, that's the berceuse, and helps the prince vanquish Casche and his monsters. The princesses and other visitors previously turned to stone are liberated, and Prince Ivan receives the hand of the beautiful 13th princess amid general rejoicing. And that's the finale. Stravinsky differentiated musically between the human and supernatural characters. The music for the humans is mainly diatonic, that's within the scale, including the borrowed Russian folk melodies. And for the supernatural characters, he uses chromatic music, which is colored by notes outside the basic scale, based on the interval of a tritone. He was particularly proud of the orchestration, which contains many brilliant effects: horn and trombone glissandos, which is sliding between pitches, and, he said, the natural harmonic string glissando near the beginning, which the bass chord touches off like a Catherine wheel. That's a revolving firework. Rhythmic ingenuities abound, among them the syncopated bass of the Firebird's dance under the fluttering woodwinds, and the sustained, insistent beat of the infernal dance. Most notable to the composer himself, the finale shows, quote, "the first appearance in my music of metrical irregularity. The 7/4 bars subdivided into 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3, etc." Stravinsky made concert versions of the ballet in 1911, 1919, 1945, and we hear the most popular from 1919. Audiences loved the Firebird from the outset, attracted by the romanticism of the tale and the expressiveness of the music. The work identified Stravinsky to much of the public, and he conducted it nearly 1,000 times. He said, "To complete the picture, I was once addressed by a man in an American railway dining car, and quite seriously, as Mr. Firebird." The piece is scored for 2 flutes, second doubling piccolo, 2 oboes, second doubling English horn, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons, 4 horns, 2 trumpets, 3 trombones, tuba, timpani, xylophone, tambourine, triangle, cymbals, bass drum, harp, piano, celeste, and strings. See you at the concerts.